We live in a world of PC culture, and in many ways it's a good thing, and in many ways it's a bad. We shouldn't let it ruin our right to a good joke, but we should also be mindful of people's feelings too.
Liam, no joke, sorry for the loss of your friend Ryan Dunn. I know you must have been thinking it could have been me, and I know we were all thinking, why wasn't it?
What we see day in and day out is things being over-analysed and picked apart. People being offended by things that weren't made to cause offence. People looking for things that aren't there, hidden meanings. But what if for once there was actually some truth to the accusations? Well, have you ever heard of Babar the elephant? You probably have. And if you haven't, you've probably seen him before. He's a staple in children's literature, a universally recognisable face. He's featured in countless books as well as having his own television show and a movie. He's up there with the big dogs, so to say, the Winnie the Poohs and the Miffies of the world. In fact, it was A.A. Milne, the creator of Winnie the Pooh, who introduced Babar to the English. On face value, Babar is very much a simple children's story made for enjoyment and glee. But art is what the audience makes of it, and there's been somewhat of a controversial critique of this cartoon elephant, and I'm here to tell you all about it. As it seems that something that passed us by as children, because at that age we are not there to critique, but simply to enjoy, has caused quite the stir. And thus I present to you, is Babar a massive racist? First of all, let's familiarise ourselves with Babar. Babar was created by Jean de Brunhoff, a Frenchman, in 1931. It's based upon a story that Jean's wife Cécile had invented for their children's bedtime story. The first book in the series is known as Histoire de Babar. It was an instant success, and it only took 2 years from it to be translated into English by A.A. Milne. However, it was only the first 7 books that were written by Jean. 7 books might seem like a lot of books to use the word only for when talking about, but this is out of 45 of them. His son Laurent took over the mantle after his father's passing in 1937. After a small passage of time, of course, as at the time Laurent was only 12. I know, it's very sad. Jean de Brunhoff actually died of tuberculosis. He was only 37, so yeah, it is very sad. But 80 years after his father's passing in 2017, Laurent released a book with what has been described as a love letter to the French capital, Babar's Guide to Paris. So the character and his stories have passed the test of time. These days you can find Laurent at the age of 93, living with his wife between New York and Key West, Florida. So what was the story of the original Babar book? The one in question that has caused quite the controversy. Well, Histoire de Babar starts with the sad passing of Babar's mother after she is brutally shot by some hunters. I know, right? This causes Babar to flee the jungle into a city. This is where Babar meets a pleasant old lady who gives him some money, for which he goes and buys himself a nice suit and a little hat, and he gets his headshot taken by a photographer. The old lady takes him in and they eat together and he sleeps in a bed. They do their morning exercises together and he bathes in a bath. They go for a car ride, and not to rhyme, but he also learns math. He attends a dinner party, and all round Babar has become an upstanding member of human society. However, he misses his home, and he misses his cousins. Babar is not entirely happy in the human world. He stands in the window thinking about the great forest he'd ran from, and he cries when he remembers his mother. However, his cousins show up one day looking for him, and find Babar within the city. Babar takes them also to buy some clothes, and shows them a nice shop where they get cakes. So basically, Babar introduces his cousins to the good life. This is when Babar's auntie and uncle come to find their children and take them home. This is when Babar decides to return to the Great Forest, taking his swanky red automobile with him. On the same day as Babar is returning, the king of the elephants eats a bad poisonous shiitake mushroom and he dies. This is when the elder elephants have council to decide upon a new king. They decide that upon Babar's return he is to be made the king, as he has lived with the humans and has learned a lot from them, and thus his cute little hat is swapped for a crown. Oh yeah, and also in the car ride over, Babar has married his cousin Celeste, so they have like a big wedding celebration / coronation, and everyone dances merrily, and that's the end of the book. So what exactly is the problem with Babar? It's quite difficult to explain, so to tell you as simply as I can, it's been expressed that there's a worry that Babar is a justification for colonialism. Colonialism is basically seeking and retaining authority over another country. For an example, an empire would include other countries it has colonised, and the French have had a history with it. In fact, between the 19th and 20th centuries, the French Empire was the second largest empire, only behind the British. And due to this, the same year Babar was released, something known as the Paris Colonial Exposition occurred. It's basically a big festival. It's an event that was built to display the diverse cultures of the French colonial empire. The purpose of it is to display colonisation in a good light. At least that is what the French were going for when they put it on. It was there to display the native cultures and downplay the French effort to spread their own language, and to try to show that France was associating themselves with the colonised countries, not assimilate them. So very much at the time of the Babar books being created and released, colonisation was a contemporary issue, and one that France would wish to justify as well as the French nationals would. So is there any truth to what's being suggested here? Or are people just reading too far into it? Well, let's have a quick rundown of exactly how the Babar books could be representing this and what's being told. It's debated the elephants represent the native Africans. I'd like to point out here that anything I say is the open interpretation and a critique. I'm not being racist. Okay, so they're naked and with nature, and when they found the city, this would represent France, that the Native Americans have been brought over from Africa to. They become clothed and accultured. So when they're introduced back into their tribes, Babar has become the king. He is above the other elephants. To be in natural form as an elephant is seen as not being as good as when they are humanized. So when it's put like that, it really is somewhat of a problem. I don't know if the book was originally wrote to represent these ideals, but surely as it goes hand in hand with what was happening at the time, it would be just too convenient not to. So is this something we need to worry about when going forward, when we represent this book to children? It's not something that would cause them harm directly, as the message, much like it did for us, would pass them by as well. It's only something they would discover in hindsight. Can the meaning of a story be changed throughout time? Should we be able to critique a 100-year-old book by what was going on at the time, or only by its relevance today? I'd say yes. I'd say if this book was in fact created as a representation of the justification of colonialism, it becomes something we should start strongly considering. But how could we prove it? And what should we do about it? Is it time we burned Babar? I've been Steinet, and I'd like to clarify that this has been a pleasure. Make sure to subscribe if you've enjoyed it and come back in the future. I hope to see you again. And to my returning subscribers, there's 8,000 of you now, which is mad. I'm sorry for not posting in a while. I've been busy with uni work. But I'm going into my final uni project now, and I will have time to do my work as well as make videos. Both of them should go hand in hand. So, thank you a lot and goodbye.